Miss Celeste, Miss Brooks, please let us know if there's anything you need.
Oh, thank you, Johnson. You know, my room is huge. It's bigger than my entire apartment.
Well, Uncle Edward always believes in doing things on a grand scale. He and Uncle Elizabeth signed this house themselves, you know.
Really? Sadly, I don't know much about Edward Marston at all.
Not necessarily a bad thing, I'd say.
Was he really that bad? When your Aunt Elizabeth first met him. When everyone describes her, I couldn't imagine her falling for someone with such a violent temper.
Oh, when they first met, he was completely different. Smart, handsome, charismatic. He started to change when he realized he couldn't have a child to start on his name. It was just small things at first, but as time went on, well...
Still, it feels strange taking money from someone I've never met.
That depends. That all depends on if you're still here in the morning, Arthur.
Well, that depends if these ghost stories are true. Do you really think Elizabeth's spirit is still here in this house?
Well, there's certainly something going on in this house, that's for sure. So many emotions.
That doesn't surprise me. If Elizabeth wants the truth to be known, this is her last chance for us to come out. If it were me, I'd be doing everything I could to get somebody's attention.
I have a question. How much do you know about immediately after Elizabeth's death?
Quite a lot, actually. We were staying here at the time.
Really? How come?
Well, we'd arrived for the funeral and decided to stay on a little while just to make sure Edward was doing all right.
Which of course he wasn't. How could he be? The love of his life had just died.
Yes, well, he locked himself away after Elizabeth died and hardly ever came out of his room. Everything reminded him of his dear old Elizabeth. We stayed on for a month or two, but it was clear he just needed time to grieve.
If I recall correctly, the incident started about a week after the funeral. At that time, there were quite a few more house staff employed here than there are now. Let's see, there was, Miss Pinkins, the housekeeper.
Four maids.
Yes, four, including that one. Mrs. Morris, the cook. Sidney Potter, as you know, was employed as the groundskeeper. There was this chauffeur, charming young fellow. What was his name, Gladys?
Eric.
Yes, Eric. Quite handsome.
So handsome.
Back to the story, ladies. Oh, yes, of course. Who was I?
You were talking about the house staff. What happened to that meeting?
Well, the day after Elizabeth died, she left, but like vanished, really. I had no idea where. She seemed to have just disappeared entirely.
I can understand why. She must have felt partially to blame for everything.
Probably. Yes, well, anyway, Mrs. Pinkins. She was the first to start noticing strange things. Little things at first, but, well, they were easy to ignore at first, but eventually they got worse and worse.
Like what things? Things would be not where she put them or go missing entirely. She got quite angry at the house staff, but they were all very adamant they hadn't touched anything.
Then there were the noises.
Noises?
Yes. Footsteps on the stairs, knocking on the doors, voices, whispers at first, but then they turned to cries.
Oh, and then there was the music.
What kind of music?
Well, she loved big band music, Elizabeth. She, well, you know, Betty Goodman, Glenn Miller, but her favorite was jazz. She loved those lilting, beautiful songs that sang of love and devotion. Dream a Little Dream was her favorite, though.
Yes, I remember. She used to play that all the time when she was alive, but after her death it played constantly, day, night, floating through the halls like a breeze. We never could figure out where it was coming from.
Yes.
Oh, so Mrs. Pinkins left because of things going missing and strange music?
Not quite.
See, as uneasy as all that made her, it was easy enough to ignore. It really happened about a month after Elizabeth had died. She was in the kitchen with Mrs. Morris preparing lunch.
Not that Edward would eat much of it, but we still had quite the appetite.
Well, she began to hear the music as per usual. Then she began to hear voices coming from this room. To be honest, at first she thought it was us, and she was coming to tell us that lunch was ready. But as she got closer, voices came to whispers, and then to cries. She crept closer and closer to the door. It was open just a little. At that moment, the door was flung open.
So this is where you all are. You're going to send me to find you.
Robert nearly frightened us all to death.
Why? What were you up to? Oh, telling ghost stories, were you?
Mrs. Pinkins.
Oh, that one, that's a doozy. Carry on.
Jess, please, what happened next?
She said that a ghostly figure wailed and flew towards her. She screamed and passed out.
Where were you two during all of this?
We were in the conservatory. We heard a commotion, came running.
We were much more spry back then.
Yes, well, we revived her, and then she started raving on and on about Elizabeth coming back. And she refused to stay even a moment longer. That lovely chauffeur had to drive her down to the bus stop, and she never came back. They even had to pack up all her clothes and mail them off. She simply refused to come back here.
The rest of the house staff lasted a little longer after that, but they all eventually left as well, except for Townsend and Sid, of course.
And, what does Townsend have to say about this?
Not a thing. Dean has spoken to him over the years, but he just won't say anything about it.
I wish we could get him to talk. I'm sure he has some thoughts on this whole affair.
Yes. And then... What? Anything else?
Well, she did talk to the staff.
Oh.
Some of them have just disappeared.
Disappeared?
Disappeared. Strange things have happened in this household, boy. Who knows what's gonna happen next?
So long, I told you to come get them 5 minutes ago.
Sorry, sis. They're telling ghost stories. I didn't want to interrupt.
Really? Which one? Beatrice and Gladys were just telling us about the first house together, Mrs. Pinkett.
Oh, I remember her. She refused to ever set foot in this house again. Have they told you about the maid they hired you after Aunt Elizabeth died?
No, they hadn't gone to her yet.
Her name's Clara Michaels. The whole thing lasted about a week.
Only a week?
Yes, I remember her. Poor Clara. She started hearing things about 2 days into her stay here. The footsteps at first, and then the music, and then the cries. We tried to make light of it all, but she was very sensitive to this sort of thing.
Maybe she had a few of her little Alanette, and she simply didn't know it.
Didn't you find her sleepwalking?
Townsend did. Her second night here, he found her wandering about the hallways for days. Mrs. Morris took her back to her room. But that next day, all she could remember was that she'd been chasing after a beautiful, sad lady. She was trying to find out why she was crying, but the lady simply wouldn't turn around.
Happened every night after that, didn't it?
Yes, but every night after that, they found her in this room. She said that every night she got a little bit closer, but could never quite reach her. Until one day, she did.
And then what happened when she reached the lady?
Well, that morning we found her here, in this room, sitting in front of the fireplace, rocking herself and humming that song. But any time any of us tried to even get close, she began to scream, claw at her face. No one could even get close to her, and we didn't want anyone to, and we didn't want her to hurt herself anymore. We had to call an ambulance to come and get her. We took her to Havenhurst.
The asylum?
Sadly,
Yes.
she's been there ever since. I went to visit her a few times to talk to her about what happened, but she just talks of the crying lady with the hollow eyes. The doctors say she's too far gone. They've tried everything, but nothing seems to get her out of it.
And she's still there after all this time?
Yep, completely loopy.
Robert, why must you be so completely insensitive?
All a part of my charm, cuz.
Davina, what is going on? I've been waiting for you all in that drafty hallway for the last 10 minutes. Are we going to explore Elizabeth's room or not? If you don't come now, I'm going in without you.
We're coming. She's so patient, isn't she, Arthur? Come along, everyone. Let's go find some clues.
I know she's been dead for a long time, but going to look in her room for clues is just so intrusive.
I agree, but it may be the only way to get any answers. Oh no, he's not going to let us go in there either.
It's all right. I'll stay here and talk to him. You go ahead.
Oh, you're a peach, Arthur.
Oh, Mr. Brooks, forgive me, I didn't realize you were in here. I was just looking up. Can I get you anything, sir?
Oh, Townsend, I was just admiring this painting of Mrs. Marston.
Yes, Mr. Marston had it commissioned about a year after he and Mrs. Marston were married. Well, sir, I was looking up. Can I get you anything?
Well, Townsend, I hate to bother you and drag you away from your nightly routine, but, well, could I get a glass of milk?
A glass of milk, sir? Would you like to be warmed, sir?
Warmed? No, that won't be necessary, Townsend. You know, I can probably just go
No,
get it
Mr.
myself.
Poole, it really is no bother. Mr. Poole does not care for people in his kitchen, and it would be less of bother if I were for you.
Understood. Thank you, Townsend.
You will return shortly with your milk.
Thank you. And now I'm alone. In the ghost room. Oh, that's comforting.
Mr. Brooks, are you alright?
Townsend, I thought I heard something.
It's probably the storm, sir. It can trick you into hearing strange things. Your milk, sir.
Oh, thank you, Townsend. You'll, have to excuse me. It's been a whirlwind few days. You know, I only got a letter from the lawyers about a week ago telling me I was related to Mr. Marston. Then I find out I'm also related to all these very interesting people. Cassandra Monroe, I mean, wow. And, Gladys and Beatrice, did you know they're Gilbert Wentworth?
Yes, sir, I did.
Of course you did, Townsend. And then there's all these stories about Edward and Elizabeth, and everything that happened in this house. It's just, I guess I'm a little overwhelmed, and I really don't know who or what to believe, and I was wondering, I know you don't really like to talk about it, but could you tell me what really happened without all the, dramatic recreations?
Traumatic recreations is putting it very mildly, Mr. Brooks.
I suppose you're right. These people live in such a different world than the one I'm used to. Everything's larger than life, and, well, I'm sorry, Townsend. I know you really don't like to talk about these things. It's just, I'm sorry. Forget what I said.
It's more about who's been asking than anything else. Even though Mr. Marston's dead, I still feel...
A certain commitment?
Exactly.
How long have you worked for Mr. Marston?
Almost 30 years now. He was my first and only employer. I've been with him since before this house was built, before he met Miss Elizabeth even. I traveled the world with him at first, and when he and Miss Elizabeth settled here, he asked me to stay on and run the house.
Oh my gosh, Townsend, I just realized how difficult this must be for you. Not only do you have to leave this house, but you also lost a friend.
Yes, it is a little sudden, I'm afraid.
Where did you go?
I have a sister. She lives on the coast. I'll probably head there for a while, and then, who knows, maybe I'll travel a little.
Yes, a fresh start, I suppose.
Fresh start might be very welcome, Mr. Brooks. Well, sir, if there's nothing else you need.
Oh, yes, course, Townsend. Thank you for the milk, and sleep well.
Good night, sir. Americans. Much better. Here's to a fresh start.
Ladies and gentlemen, there'll be a short 15-minute intermission, and then we'll be on the show.